Well, we've been at it all morning today.
That come out really good. Hey guys, this is Steve, the old Connecticut outdoorsman, coming to you from his garage in front of my collection of bows and arrows. And I wanted to talk to you today about short draw, low poundage setups, arrow setups. And I've used them over the years. I've used probably, I don't know, 30 or 40 different types of arrows and combinations of broadheads, whatever. Of course, I started hunting, bow hunting anyways, back in 1976-ish, somewhere there. My first bow was actually a Bear recurve that I bought secondhand. It went from there to a Jennings compound, which was really great, had a 50% let off, and I used to shoot that at about 75 pounds. Then I went to a Martin Lynx. Then from there, I ended up with my PSC XLR 900, which I killed, I don't know, 20 or 30 deer with. This is all finger shooting, obviously. And basically, most of it was aluminum arrows at that time, 2214s, 2314s, something like that, weighing around 500, 550 grains. So I was probably getting a whopping 210 feet per second out of those setups. Graduated now, obviously, to some higher efficiency compounds. Went to a Bow Madness. Then I actually ended up with my Bow Madness Unleashed, a 2019 bow. And I wanted to try to get something that was easy. It was light, had good speed, and it was easy drawing. This has got a 6-inch brace height. I have it set at 60 pounds right now. My draw length is very short. I have short arms. Just think of little Tyrannosaurus Rex arms, as my brother says anyways. And I have a draw length right now of 26 and a half inches, so it's pretty short. So I lose a lot of speed that way. At 60 pounds, 26 and a half inches, the best I'm going to get with around a 400 grain arrow is around 260 feet per second, and that's just the way it is. I mean, you know, I don't even shoot a 400 grain arrow, so, and that's what I want to talk to you about today. So what I have found over the years, and I started off shooting, of course, the regular broadheads everybody shot. I shot Cabela's 3 blades, Cabela's 4 blades, Bear razor heads back in the day. Never had a problem with penetration, ever, ever. The arrows went right through deer like they were, it's like shooting through butter, basically. Then I actually decided to get into some expandables at that time, and I shot my first expandable, which is the Rocket Hammerhead. It's a 3 blade, as you can see it right there, 2-inch cut, massive cut. The problem is the blades are only .027. They're very flimsy. I've never had a pass-through. I shouldn't say that. I had one pass-through. Most of my deer have never had pass-throughs with this broadhead, and the only pass-through I did get was one that actually broke off one of the blades. It happened to be my biggest deer, which was great, but still, performance was lacking on pass-throughs. Blood trails were pretty good unless I hit them high and never got through. Then you had a skimpy blood trail because the entrance wound was very high in the back or on the side, and you just didn't get any blood leaking out that way. I went to the Rocket Steelhead. This is a 125 grain steelhead, if you can see it. These things penetrate like crazy. 1 1/4 inch cut, you know, excellent. I've had all the deer I shot with this, full penetration pass through, so I couldn't say anything wrong. I tried a Schwacker, again. This is a Schwacker 2-inch cut, and I liked it because it had an entrance wound going in with the 2 wing blades, and it opens inside the deer. You know, all the jazz you've heard about Schwacker. But again, never had a pass through on a Schwacker. Most of the time they actually got stuck on the opposite side. Even I shot a 6-point at 15 yards. Deer probably weighed 150 pounds soaking wet, and the arrow did not get all the way through. Little more on that later. Ended up going to a Wasp Boss 100. Awesome broadhead. Most of the deer I shot with this, full penetration right through. And then after the Schwacker incident, I decided to go full on single bevel, heavy broadhead. This is a 150 grain grizzly, which I've hand sharpened and stropped. This thing goes through deer like they weren't even there. So that's a great broadhead. I went to Alien Archery, 175 grain. I think this is called the Ashby Special. Single bevel again. Beautiful broadhead. I didn't shoot any deer with that yet. I also have in my quiver this year, this is actually from, gosh, I can't think of it now. Anyways, this is called the Cleaver. And this is a 125 cleaver. Single bevel again. I've actually resharpened this one. Nice broadhead, and I'm shooting a 150 grain right now. And this is also another Alien Archery, single bevel, 125 grain, 1 1/4 inch cut. And this is the one I actually killed my last deer with. Let's talk about arrow setups. This is one of my current arrow setups. This happens to be a Cabela's SST 2300. It's one of the original micro diameter shafts that came out back in the late 90s, like 1999-ish, somewhere in there. I bought 3 packages of these. I'm down to about 14 of them now. The finished arrow, this is actually about a 26-inch, 27-inch arrow, because again, I have a short draw. So this finished arrow with the broadhead, 100 grain broadhead, and this happens to be a Deep Power 100 3-blade, 1 1/4 inch cut. It's an awesome broadhead, very similar to the Muzzy Trocar. This actually comes in at about 420 grains. And I've shot through deer like crazy, like they weren't there with this arrow. I've shot lengthwise through deer with this arrow as well. Again, micro diameter, very slick surface. Great setup, especially for a short draw, low poundage setup. Another one that I really like, this is actually a Beeman Hunter 6080. Haven't made these things in 30 years. Again, micro diameter. This is actually about a 22.244, I think it is, outside diameter. This is outside diameter, not inside diameter. They all have outserts. This is actually with a Cleaver 150 grain single bevel. And again, I've shot through deer with this and also with the Grizzly like they weren't even there. It just goes right through them. These micro diameter thin shafts with the polished outside, they're fantastic for penetration. And last but not least, a more modern setup. This is actually a Beeman Speed. It's a 400 spine arrow, cut to 20, I think it's 28 inches. It's a little longer than I normally have. And this has got a Magnus 100 buzz cut on it. So another great penetrating arrow. This is actually a 2-blade. I have some 4 blades as well. I just didn't have it on the arrow this time, but I'm shooting with the 2-blade this time. And it's got a Luminoc on the backside. So again, this arrow finished weight, for all these arrows are finished weight between 420 and 450. This one I think is 445. The Beeman is 438 with a 150 grain broadhead on it. The Cabela SST is, like I said, 420 with a 100 grain broadhead on it. I also have Cabela's 2400s, which are about 20 grains heavier spine on that. So I usually put that 125 grain broadhead on there. So I'm running around 470 grains per arrow on that one. Again, fantastic penetration. Shot those with snuffers. So if you're looking for an arrow that actually has enough penetration power, and if you have a short draw and low poundage, like right now my brother and I are both, I'm 66, he's 61, he's shooting 58 pounds, I'm shooting 60 pounds, and he's a lot bigger guy than I am, but his bow's got a much more aggressive cam to it. So we try to get something that's going to give us enough oomph to get through the deer, cut on contact head, or something like a cut on contact head. The 3 blades with the Trocar tip is actually a nice option. We're trying to stay away from the expandables, especially a 2-inch expandable. I will tell you, I just bought the Sever 1.5s and 125 grain after seeing all these different reviews. I watched John Lusk's review as well. Seemed to do well. I will try that on some white-tailed does that I got prowling around over here, so I want to give that a shot. And I will probably continue to use the Steelhead 125s with 1 1/4 inch cut. These things they just go right through deer like crazy. So, but I'm not using the aggressive ones. I'm not shooting the Schwacker 2.0s. I'm not going to be shooting the Rocket 2-inch cuts. Unless I go for turkeys, I'll use these. But other than that, that's pretty much my selection. I have some other arrows that are actually in that finished weight range of 420 to 450. But I like that because it gives me a combination of speed, power, and penetration. With a 450 grain arrow, my bow with the current setup is getting right around 240 feet per second. I know you guys are going 240 feet per second. That's like, like a recurve. It's not. My recurve shoots 166 feet per second. And if you ask anybody out there, traditional wise, 166, 180, that's pretty much the max you're going to get out of a recurve with a heavy arrow setup. So we had no problem shooting through deer back in the 70s and 80s. So that's pretty much it, guys. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below. And I'll continue to use my Alien Archery single bevels. I'll continue to use the cleavers. These two guys I may use again next year. And like I said, I'm using the D-Power 3-blade, which I've actually shot a deer with and had fantastic penetration power on that. But that's pretty much my setup currently. And like I said, I want to give these the severs a try and see what they look like. That's it for today, guys. One thing I forgot to mention about my arrow systems, and this should really apply to anybody who's out there shooting, again, low poundage, low draw, throw length. Mine's 26.5 again. You know, I basically shoot anything from a 55-pound bow up to a 60-pound bow right now, just because I'm 66. I don't have the oomph that I used to have, even though I work out all the time. But anyway, I'm digressing here. One thing I insist on my arrow systems, besides being the weight between 420 and 450, is it's got to have enough FOC. So you'll notice that, for example, on my Beeman Speeds, I have a 100 grain broadhead. What I didn't tell you was I also have a 100 grain brass insert in the front of this. So I got 200 grains of weight up in the front of this arrow, which just happens to be a very light arrow. I think it's only 7.5 or 7.7 grains per inch on this one, because it's a 400 spine. On my Beeman Hunter, again, very, very light shafted arrow, but it's got an outsert that weighs around 50 grains, and I got a 150 grain single bevel broadhead on it. So again, 200 grains up front. On the old Cabela's SSTs, 420 grains total weight. It's got a 100 grain broadhead and a 45 grain outsert. So this one's around 145 grains. On some of the other arrow systems I have a 50 grain insert and either a 125 or 150 grain broadhead. I'd like to have at least 150 grains to 200 grains up front, so my FOC on these arrows is anywhere between a low of 15 up to a high of around 22, depending what broadhead I use. So that gives me a great penetrating arrow, enough weight, as well as enough speed, in my mind anyways, where I'm shooting about 240 feet per second, to make range estimation pretty good out to 30 yards. I don't shoot past 30 yards, maybe 40 yards max in all my 30 years of bow hunting, but for the most part it's 20 yards and in. So I don't really need an arrow that's going to fly, you know, perfectly straight out there. And there's a lot of new arrow systems out there that mimic what I'm saying. You know, the Victory VAPs and the RIPs, TKOs, great system. They have an insert outsert, I believe it is, so you can actually add stainless steel, so you can get some weight up front, very low diameter. Gold Tip's got the I think it's called the Airstrike, I think is what it is. It's a 204 outside diameter, so it's actually a lighter, lower diameter arrow made for long, you know, you can basically penetrate like crazy with that. There's a Pierce out there. There's a number of systems out there that mimic some of these old-time systems that I have, which you know, it's unfortunate they don't make these any longer. But you know, they said that the pultruded carbon arrows were a hazard. I've never had a problem with these things. They really work very well. They're as tough as nails. When they do break, they break longitudinally, so it's really funny. They kind of splinter lengthwise along the arrow. But that's only if you hit a rock or something like that. On a regular deer, unless they roll on them, which I've had that happen, they don't break. They just go right through the deer. The worst case scenario I've had is the outsert might bend a little bit after hitting the leg bone, but that's a very rare instance. This same arrow, same system with the deep power head, literally broke the front humerus of a 200-pound buck. It shattered it, and the arrow and the broadhead was intact except for one blade broke off, but the arrow was totally intact. So it was amazing performance. So that's what I have to say about that. So higher FOC than normal, a little bit higher, you know, arrow weight. That 450 grain for me is like a sweet spot. That's what I think. Hopefully you guys have any comments on that. Put them down below, and we'll be seeing you later. I'll be talking about my saddle setup next and some of the platforms that I've made to save some money, because I have a lot of platforms out. So thanks a lot for watching. We'll talk to you later, and good luck hunting.